Picture this, you're dying. Your heart is failing, and you have maybe weeks to live. Then, a miracle happens. You get the call. There's a donor. A perfect match. You go under the knife, and when you wake up, you're alive. You should be grateful, right? You should be celebrating your second chance at life. But what if that new heart came with something else? Something the doctors never warned you about. Something that would make you question everything you thought you knew about life, death, and what it means to truly be yourself. But before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, if you're wearing headphones, perfect. If not, you might want to put some on. Or, you can lower the volume now, just enough so my voice blends gently with the stillness of your room. Close your eyes. Let your shoulders sink just a bit more into your pillow. You don't have to do anything. Just listen. Tonight's story is titled, She Got a Heart Transplant. Then the nightmares began. This is the story of Sarah Chen, a 34-year-old marketing executive from Portland, Oregon. And what happened to her after her heart transplant will change the way you think about organ donation forever. Let me take you back to March 15, 2023. Sarah Chen was living what most people would call a normal life. She had a good job, a loving boyfriend named Marcus, and a small apartment overlooking the Willamette River. But Sarah had a secret that was slowly killing her. She'd been born with a rare genetic condition called dilated cardiomyopathy. Her heart muscle was weak, enlarged, and failing. By age 30, she was on the transplant list. By 34, she was running out of time. Sarah's condition had deteriorated rapidly in the months leading up to March 2023. She could barely walk up a flight of stairs without gasping for breath. Her lips had taken on a bluish tint, a sign that her heart wasn't pumping enough oxygen-rich blood through her body. Her cardiologist, Dr. Elizabeth Reeves at Oregon Health and Science University, had been brutally honest. Sarah, without a transplant, you have maybe 8 to 12 weeks. We need to find you a heart, and we need to find one soon. Then came the call that changed everything. March 15, 2023, at 2:47 a.m. Sarah remembers the exact time because she'd been awake, struggling to breathe, when her phone rang. Sarah, this is Dr. Reeves. We have a heart. It's a perfect match, same blood type, similar age, excellent condition. The donor was a 28-year-old woman. Can you get to the hospital within the hour? Sarah didn't hesitate. Within 45 minutes, she was prepped for surgery. The donor heart, young, strong, healthy, was already on its way from Seattle, where the donor had died in a car accident just hours earlier. The surgery took 6 hours. Dr. Reeves later described it as textbook perfect. The new heart fit beautifully, the connections were solid, and within minutes of being transplanted, it was beating strong and steady in Sarah's chest. For the first time in years, Sarah's body was getting the oxygen it desperately needed. Sarah's recovery was remarkable. Within days, the blue tint left her lips. Within a week, she could walk the hospital corridors without getting winded. Within 2 weeks, she was discharged home with a strict regimen of anti-rejection medications and follow-up appointments. But here's where our story really begins. Because while Sarah's body was healing beautifully, something else was starting to happen. Something that would turn her miracle into a nightmare. It started with the dreams. 3 weeks after her surgery, Sarah began having the most vivid, terrifying nightmares of her life. But these weren't ordinary dreams. They were too real, too specific, too consistent. Every night, she would find herself in the same scenario. She was driving down a dark, winding road in heavy rain. The radio was playing a song she didn't recognize, something with violin and a haunting female voice singing in what sounded like Italian. Her hands on the steering wheel weren't her own. They were smaller, with black nail polish and a distinctive silver ring on the middle finger. In the dream, she would always see the same thing in her rear-view mirror. Headlights approaching fast. Too fast. She would try to speed up, but the other car would get closer and closer until Sarah would wake up screaming, her new heart pounding so hard she could feel it trying to burst from her chest. At first, Sarah dismissed the dreams as stress from her surgery and recovery. Post-operative anxiety was common, her doctors assured her. But the dreams didn't stop. They got more detailed, more specific, and more disturbing. In her waking hours, Sarah began experiencing other strange phenomena. She found herself craving foods she'd never liked before, spicy Italian food, especially. She'd catch herself humming melodies she'd never heard. And strangest of all, she started having an inexplicable fear of driving at night, something that had never bothered her before. But it was the knowledge that really freaked her out. Specific knowledge about things she'd never learned or experienced. One day, while walking through downtown Portland with Marcus, they passed a small Italian restaurant. Sarah stopped dead in her tracks. "That's where she worked," she said, staring at the restaurant. "Who worked there?" Marcus asked, confused. Sarah blinked, suddenly realizing what she'd said. I don't know. I don't know why I said that." The incidents kept happening. Sarah would know things, random, specific things, that she had no reason to know. She knew that the coffee shop on Morrison Street made their espresso too weak. She knew that the bookstore owner on Hawthorne had a cat named Beethoven. She knew the shortcut through the Pearl District that avoided all the construction. But here's the thing. Sarah rarely went to these places. How could she possibly know these details? The breaking point came 6 weeks after her surgery. Sarah was having lunch with her sister, Emma, when a news report came on the restaurant's TV. The anchor was doing a follow-up story about a fatal car accident that had occurred in Seattle 2 months earlier. The victim, 28-year-old Isabella Romano, was driving home from her job at Nonna's Italian Kitchen when she was struck by a drunk driver on a rainy night in March. Sarah's fork clattered to her plate. Her face went white. "Sarah, are you okay?" Emma asked, concerned. But Sarah couldn't speak, because there on the TV screen was a photo of Isabella Romano. Small hands with black nail polish. A silver ring on her middle finger. The same hand Sarah had been seeing in her dreams for weeks. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She sat at her computer and started researching. What she found made her question everything she thought she knew about organ transplants, memory, and the nature of human consciousness itself. Sarah discovered that Isabella Romano had indeed died in a car accident on March 15, 2023, the same day Sarah received her heart transplant. The accident had occurred near Seattle, on a winding road called Highway 18, during a heavy rainstorm. Isabella had been driving home from work when a drunk driver ran a red light and hit her car head-on. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. The most disturbing part was what Sarah found when she dug deeper into Isabella's life. Isabella Romano was 28 years old, born in Portland but living in Seattle. She worked as a server at Nonna's Italian Kitchen, a family restaurant known for its authentic Northern Italian cuisine. She loved to cook, especially spicy dishes. She was an amateur violinist who often listened to Italian opera while driving. She also had a habit of humming while she worked, drove with her windows down even in the rain, and always wore black nail polish with a distinctive silver ring, a family heirloom, on her middle finger. Every detail from Sarah's dreams and strange new preferences matched Isabella's life perfectly. But Sarah needed more proof. She needed to know for certain. So she did something that would either confirm her worst fears or prove she was losing her mind. She drove to Seattle. Sarah told Marcus she was visiting a friend for the weekend, but instead, she drove straight to Nonna's Italian Kitchen, the restaurant where Isabella had worked. She sat in her car outside for almost an hour, working up the courage to go in. When she finally entered, the older Italian woman behind the counter, presumably Nonna herself, looked up and gasped. "Madonna mia," the woman whispered, crossing herself. You look just like Isabella." Sarah finished. The woman nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "She was like a daughter to me. So young, so full of life. The accident, it was so senseless." Sarah spent the next hour learning about Isabella Romano. She was a passionate cook who specialized in Northern Italian dishes. She'd been saving money to open her own restaurant. She loved late-night drives with opera music playing. She was terrified of drunk drivers because her own father had been killed by one when she was 12. Every piece of information felt familiar to Sarah, like recovering forgotten memories rather than learning new facts. But the most chilling moment came when Nonna brought out a photo album. This was Isabella's favorite recipe, Nonna said, showing Sarah a handwritten card. Spicy arrabbiata sauce. She made it exactly like her Nonna taught her in Tuscany. Sarah stared at the recipe card. Without thinking, she said, "You add the red pepper flakes at the end, not the beginning. Otherwise, they burn and make the sauce bitter." Nona's eyes widened. "How did you?" "That's exactly what Isabella always said." "Exactly." That night, Sarah drove home in a daze. She was beginning to accept an impossible truth. Somehow, Isabella Romano's memories, her personality, her very essence, had transferred to Sarah along with her heart. But the story doesn't end there, because 3 days after Sarah returned from Seattle, something happened that would change her life forever. She got a phone call. "Is this Sarah Chen?" The voice was male, older, with a slight Italian accent. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Anthony Romano. Isabella was my daughter." Sarah's blood ran cold. "How did you get my number?" "I have connections at the hospital. I know you received Isabella's heart, and I know you've been having dreams about her death." "That's impossible. Doctor-patient confidentiality. I want my daughter's heart back." Anthony Romano wasn't a typical grieving father. He was, according to Sarah's frantic research that night, a wealthy businessman with rumored connections to organized crime. He owned several restaurants in Seattle and Portland, and had the kind of influence that could make things happen or make people disappear. Over the next few days, Sarah received more calls. Anthony Romano claimed that Isabella's spirit was trapped, unable to rest because her heart was still beating in someone else's chest. He offered Sarah money, first thousands, then hundreds of thousands of dollars, to return his daughter's heart. "You don't understand," Romano said during one particularly disturbing call. "Isabella is still alive in there. She's trying to come home. Those dreams you're having, that's her, trying to tell you where she belongs." Sarah tried to involve the police, but there wasn't much they could do. Romano never explicitly threatened her, and organ donor information was supposed to be confidential. The fact that he'd obtained her contact information was concerning, but not necessarily illegal. But Romano's calls weren't the only problem. Sarah's dreams were getting worse, more vivid, more terrifying, and they were starting to bleed into her waking hours. She would be at work and suddenly smell Isabella's perfume, a light, floral scent she'd never worn. She would catch glimpses of Isabella's reflection in mirrors instead of her own. She would wake up at night to find herself cooking elaborate Italian meals she'd never learned to make with ingredients she didn't remember buying. Marcus was becoming increasingly worried. "Sarah, you're scaring me. You're not acting like yourself anymore. Maybe we should talk to Dr. Reeves about adjusting your medications." But Sarah knew this wasn't about medications. This was about Isabella Romano, and she was getting stronger. The climax came exactly 3 months after Sarah's transplant. She woke up at 2:47 a.m., the exact time she'd received the call about her new heart. But this time, she wasn't in her bed. She was standing in her kitchen, fully dressed, car keys in her hand. She had no memory of getting up or getting dressed. On the counter was a note, written in handwriting that wasn't quite her own. "Highway 18. Where it happened. Come alone. It's time to finish what was started." Sarah should have called the police. She should have called Marcus. She should have driven straight to the hospital. Instead, she found herself getting in her car and driving north toward Seattle, toward Highway 18, toward the spot where Isabella Romano had died. She drove in a trance, knowing exactly where to go despite never having been there before. The radio was playing Italian opera. Her hands looked different on the steering wheel, smaller, more delicate, with black nail polish she didn't remember applying. It started raining as she reached the outskirts of Seattle, just like in her dreams. Heavy drops that made the dark road treacherous and turned her windshield into a blur of moving water. Highway 18 was deserted at 4 a.m. Sarah drove slowly, looking for what? She wasn't sure, but she would know it when she saw it. Then she saw them. Headlights in her rear-view mirror, approaching fast. Too fast. Sarah's heart, Isabella's heart, began pounding. This was the dream. This was exactly how it had happened. The drunk driver who had killed Isabella was somehow here again, chasing her down the same dark road. But as the headlights got closer, Sarah realized something that made her blood freeze. The car behind her was a black Mercedes with distinctive fog lights. She'd seen that car before, parked outside her apartment, following her to work. sitting across from Nonna's restaurant when she'd visited Seattle. Anthony Romano hadn't been trying to buy Isabella's heart back. He'd been hunting it. Sarah pressed the accelerator, but the Mercedes was faster. It pulled alongside her, and she could see Anthony Romano behind the wheel, his face twisted with grief and rage. "Give me back my daughter," he screamed through his open window. That's when Sarah understood the horrible truth. Anthony Romano blamed Sarah for his daughter's continued suffering. In his mind, as long as Isabella's heart was beating in someone else's chest, his daughter could never rest, could never find peace. And he was willing to kill Sarah to free Isabella's soul. What happened next depends on who you believe. According to the police report, Sarah Chen lost control of her vehicle on the rain-slicked Highway 18 and crashed into a guardrail. She was found unconscious but alive, with minor injuries. Her car was totaled, but she survived. Anthony Romano was found dead in his Mercedes a quarter-mile away, having apparently suffered a massive heart attack while driving. There was no evidence that the two incidents were related, but Sarah's version of events is very different. According to Sarah, at the moment of impact, time seemed to slow down. She felt a presence in the car with her, a young woman with dark hair and kind eyes, wearing the silver ring Sarah had seen so many times in her dreams. "Thank you," Isabella said, her voice as clear as if she was sitting in the passenger seat. "Thank you for letting me say goodbye." Then Sarah felt something leave her chest, not physically, but spiritually. A presence that had been with her for 3 months, sharing her body, her heart, her very existence, was suddenly gone. When Sarah woke up in the hospital the next morning, the dreams were gone. The strange cravings were gone. The inexplicable knowledge was gone. For the first time since her transplant, she felt truly alone in her own body. But there was something else. In her hand was the silver ring, Isabella's family heirloom. The one she'd seen in every dream, on every phantom hand. The hospital staff insisted it had been found with her at the crash site, though Sarah had no memory of ever having it. Dr. Reeves ran every test imaginable. Sarah's new heart was functioning perfectly. There were no signs of rejection, no complications from the accident. Physically, she was completely healthy. "I've never seen anything like it," Dr. Reeves told her. "It's as if your body and the donor heart have finally achieved perfect synchronization. Whatever was causing your unusual experiences seems to have resolved itself." Sarah never told her about Isabella's visitation, about Anthony Romano's obsession, or about the feeling that she'd been sharing her body with someone else for 3 months. Some stories are too strange for medical reports. Today, Sarah Chen is thriving. Her heart, Isabella's heart, beats strong and steady. She's back to work, planning to marry Marcus next spring, and living the full, healthy life that her transplant was meant to give her. But the experience changed her in ways that have nothing to do with medicine. Sarah now volunteers with organ donation awareness programs, though she's careful about how much of her story she shares. She's also learned to cook Italian food, not because she suddenly remembers Isabella's recipes, but because she wanted to honor the young woman who gave her a second chance at life. She keeps Isabella's ring in a small box on her dresser, next to a photo of Isabella that Nonna gave her during a recent visit to Seattle. Sometimes, late at night, she'll look at the photo and whisper thank you to the young woman who saved her life and then, somehow, found a way to save her own soul. Anthony Romano was buried next to his daughter in a small cemetery outside Seattle. According to the funeral director, on the day of his burial, someone had left fresh flowers on Isabella's grave, white roses, her favorite, though no one saw who placed them there. So what really happened to Sarah Chen? Was it cellular memory, the controversial theory that organs can carry memories and personality traits from donors to recipients? Was it coincidence and the power of suggestion? Or was it something more mysterious, more profound? Medical science says that memories are stored in the brain, not the heart. That personality comes from neural patterns, not cardiac tissue. That what Sarah experienced was impossible. But Sarah knows what she experienced. She knows that for 3 months, she shared her body with Isabella Romano. She knows that Isabella's spirit was trapped, desperate to find peace. And she knows that sometimes love is stronger than death, even if that love comes from a father's desperate grief. The heart is more than just a pump that circulates blood through our bodies. In every culture, in every language, The heart represents love, courage, the very essence of who we are. When we say someone has a good heart or strong heart, we're not talking about their cardiovascular system. Maybe, just maybe, when Isabella Romano's heart was transplanted into Sarah Chen's chest, it carried more than just the ability to sustain life. Maybe it carried Isabella herself. And maybe love really is eternal, beating on in the chest of a stranger who was brave enough to help a lost soul find her way home. What do you think? Could memories, personality, even consciousness itself be transferred through organ transplantation? Or was Sarah's experience simply the result of trauma, medication, and coincidence? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story affected you, consider becoming an organ donor. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for their miracle, their second chance at life. Just remember, when you give someone your heart, you might be giving them more than you ever imagined.